I'm going to make a case for why the 80D, the 7D Mark II, and the 6D Mark I are some of the best value cameras you can buy around that $500 price point. It's pretty clear now that Canon is focused on mirrorless, and we're unlikely to see another DSLR. In other words, the dust has settled, and we can now look back at the history of all the DSLRs they ever made and pick and choose the absolute best ones for the money. We've split them up into 4 groups, starting with the Rebel cameras, of which there are 22. These are the entry-level, not weather-sealed, very small, lightweight, usually bundled with a kit lens. Next up we have the double-digit D. These are more advanced, they're weather-sealed, they're a lot tougher, they're built to last. Next up we have the 5D, 6D, and 7D series of cameras, higher performance. They're going to be tougher, they're going to have more weather sealing. These were and continue to be used by professionals. And finally we have the Flagship line. If you're in the market for one of these cameras, you probably already know what the options are, but we're still going to review them just for completion's sake. So let's get started. So we're going to start with the Rebel series, and we have the 300D up here, which is the original Canon Rebel. It was released in 2003. It has 6 megapixels, that's the 4th column there, megapixels. It's 645 grams, rated to 400 shots, battery life, that's the SEPA rating, 2.5 frames per second continuous shooting, 7 autofocus points. It does not have the dual pixel autofocus, DPAF. It uses compact flash cards. It has a fixed low resolution LCD screen, no video features, no microphone port, and is no longer available new, but you can buy it in minty used condition on eBay for around $25 US. After the 300D, Canon saw a lot of success, and we had the 350D, the 400D, and you'll notice these were actually known as the Rebel XT and XTI in North America. 1000D, 450D, 500D, 550D, the Rebel T2i is the first one that I think you can take seriously as a video camera because you actually get 1080p 30 FPS. Anyway, we're just going to blow through the rest of them really quickly. You can see now we're starting to see more of the 24 megapixel cameras in that 4th column. But if I were to pick or recommend a camera for a beginner out of these, I would go for one of these two. The T3i or the SL1, also known as the 100D. A Rebel is a good test to see whether you're going to get serious about photography. If you are going to get serious, you're going to end up selling it and upgrading anyway. The SL1 and the T3i are not that different from one another. The T3i notably has an articulated screen. The SL1 is slightly newer, just ever so slightly higher FPS. Also an 18 megapixel sensor, but you do get a slightly upgraded CPU. The one thing to consider is that the SL1, and you really should see one of these in person, it's the lightest camera in this whole sheet. This thing is extremely small, and I think works a lot better for people with smaller hands. We're going to start with the D30, not to be confused with the 30D, but it wasn't long until Canon found its stride with the 10D, and the numbers have just been going up from there. Then we had the 20D Astrophotography Edition, the 30D, the 40D, which is one of my favorite budget cameras. I have a review of this one on my channel. The 50D, you'll notice the LCD resolution suddenly jumps up. And finally, we have the 90D. All the way at the bottom is the latest one. It's still available new for 99% of people. The 90D, I think, is more camera than you'll ever need. It has that 33 megapixel sensor, which is going to demand higher quality lenses if you're going to make the most of it. An insane battery life of 1300 shots, 11 FPS, shoots 4K video, has the dual pixel autofocus technology. Now, you can buy the 90D used for $900, but I don't think that's where the value is. I think the real value is right here in the 80D. Just go one model back. The 80D was a significant improvement over the 70D in autofocus performance. If you want, you can print giant prints using a 24 megapixel file. Also lots of room for cropping there. And notice there are 45 autofocus points. So the autofocus technology is greatly improved. The low light technology is improved and shoots 1080p 60 FPS video, so you can use it for all your filmmaking needs. That's where the value is. Starting with the 5D Classic and the 5D Classic is still sold for 300 bucks today. Its value slightly inflated by hipsters and YouTubers like myself, but if you look at the output from the 5D Classic, you'll instantly see why it's such an amazing camera. It has that glorious sensor. Next we have the 5D Mark II. Of course, Canon continued building on the success of the 5D series, 5D Mark III and 5D Mark IV, which is still available new today. The 5DS, which is a higher resolution camera, you'll notice the megapixel count 51. Now the 6D series, this is Canon's entry door into full frame, and the 6D original was a very successful camera. It was followed by the 6D Mark II, which was lambasted for not being a considerable enough improvement. And finally, the 7D and the 7D Mark II are actually crop sensor or APS-C cameras, but they're still in this category because these are professional bodies. They're weather sealed, just like all the cameras on this list, and they're amazing for sports, action, and wildlife. Now I'm going to select two cameras here at that $500 price point that I think represent the absolute best value, and they're the 6D and the 7D Mark II. And right away, I can hear you preparing your death threats because I haven't picked the 5D Mark II or haven't pushed people towards the 5D Mark III. I think you can make an argument for the 5D Mark III as well if you can find a great deal on that one, absolutely, if you can push to 600. But again, strictly at the $500 mark, I think this is a phenomenal camera. It's also a favorite for budget astrophotography. 20 megapixels is plenty for just about anything. Now the 7D Mark II, why not the 7D original? The 7D original is no slouch for sports, action, and wildlife, but the Mark II offers such significant autofocus performance and that increased FPS and much higher number of autofocus points just makes it a clear winner. It's also a lot newer, so you're more likely to find one in good condition. I think if you're patient enough, you can find one for under 500. The 1D series of cameras, starting with the original 1D in 2001. You'll notice these cameras still command relatively high prices on the used market. Realistically, you're going to be choosing between the 1DX, the 1DX Mark II, and the 1DX Mark III, which is still available today for $6,500. So finally, pick number one for the do-it-all general pick. I'm going to go with the Canon 80D, and just some lenses that you could consider with the 80D. 15 to 85 millimeter EFS lens is a great all-round mid-range zoom that's available for 200 bucks used. The Sigma 17 to 50 millimeter f2.8 is a Canon fan favorite for that wider aperture at a great price with stabilization as well. OS stands for optically stabilized. Canon EFS 55 to 250 millimeter IS STM is your telephoto budget lens of choice. And finally, who can forget the 35 millimeter f2 IS USM if you're looking for a great street photography lens. For the second pick, we have the budget sports action wildlife, and that's the 7D Mark II is the obvious choice in this category. Some of the lenses you could choose are the EFS 17 to 55 millimeter, one of the higher quality lenses out there for crop sensor cameras. The Canon EF 400 millimeter f5.6 L USM 100 to 400 millimeter LIS2 USM is 1,400 bucks. But look, if you're going to get serious about wildlife, I would definitely prioritize a lens, a high quality lens like this, and spend the remainder on the camera body instead of the other way around. Finally, the third pick we have full frame. I know there are a lot of these available on the used market today. You could make a case again for the 5D Mark III, but if you're looking to extract maximum value, I think this is it. There's nothing stopping you from grabbing the $80 Nifty 50mm 1.8 STM on the used market, which is a lens that you can use for portraits, street travel, whatever. There's also the Sigma 105mm f2.8 macro lens if you're looking to get into that. The 16 to 35mm f4 is a phenomenal wide-angle lens, very popular with landscape photographers. And of course, who can forget the Tamron SP 24 to 70mm 2.8 DI VC G2. Amazing value for money on the used market, 750 bucks. Coupled with this camera, you have a very professional kit in your hands, ready for portraiture, weddings, photojournalism, you name it. Well guys, thank you for sitting through all that. If you have any questions or need specific recommendations, drop a note in the comment section. And of course, I'll include a link to this spreadsheet As always, thank you for watching and subscribe for more.